Welcome to the Open Talent Report, the award-winning podcast where we dive deep into the emerging trends in global employment, the future of work, the talent crisis, the demographic deficit, and the new world of work with our expert host, Connor Heaney. Connor is the managing director at CXE EMEA, a company that takes the hassle out of finding, compliantly engaging and paying contractors anywhere in the world. In this podcast, Connor brings you captivating conversations with top CEOs, visionary founders, and industry experts. Together, they shed light on all things open talent and the evolving nature of work itself. So grab your headphones and join us on this exhilarating journey.
Hello and welcome to this week's show where I'm delighted to be joined by Milena Cerdas, Global Contingent Workforce Strategy Manager at Philip Morris International, also known as PMI. I've been, I have to say, thoroughly enjoying Milena's content on social and business media over the last while. And I think it's fair to say, at least from my perspective anyway, that Milena has a really fresh, really interesting perspective on HR and procurement, contingent workforce, total workforce strategies, and the future of work. And I suppose I'm having a bit of a fanboy moment because I had the opportunity to listen and meet with you, Milena, at Procurement recently in Berlin. And I really enjoy how you can bring a lot of these topics to life. And I really enjoy and appreciate your fresh perspective on a lot of the topics that we're going to discuss today. So I'm truly delighted that you're on the show, and thanks so much for joining the show. I think our audience are going to really appreciate what you have to say. So, Milena, how are you doing today? You keeping well?
Thanks so much. Though, actually, I'm thrilled to be joining these. I've listened to these podcasts before and also quite like it. And the admiration is mutual, you know. So I'm also really enjoying the content and really enjoyed meeting you in person as well. So that makes it easier and have the chat right now.
Yeah,
Thank you for the invitation, really.
Oh, thanks. Well, listen, our audience are going to love it, and I know I'm going to love it. So thanks again. So, Milena, what is your story? So can you just explain for the benefit of our audience, how you became the contingent workforce strategy manager at PMI? What was your journey? Because I was quite interested when we met in Procurement in person, just to hear your story. And would you mind sharing that with our audience, if that's okay?
Yes, of course. I'm going to start from the very, very beginning. I'm going to let everyone know the country I'm coming from. So I'm originally from Costa Rica. I haven't always been in procurement or HR. So I have always been very curious, and when I was little, I was interested in the science behind things. So that's why I decided to go for engineering, and I studied chemical engineering. And I worked in manufacturing for a while, but then I realized, I also have like a people side in me and interest in business. So I started to get a little bit more interest in business. And someone suggested that if I was interested to move in procurement, at that point in time, I wasn't so sure, but I said, okay, I'll give it a go. It has the business side, etc. So I started to work in procurement, focus on professional services and talent acquisition, contingent workforce. I was still in Costa Rica by then. And then an opportunity came up to move to London and join the global procurement team to look after contingent workforce and talent acquisition. And I'm going to make a parenthesis here because many people ask me, like, why leave Costa Rica? Like, really, it's the paradise. Everyone knows it because most people will go on vacations, and we have very beautiful landscape and protected areas. It's a very peaceful country. One of the most developed. I think it comes second after Chile on the development. However, I did want to seek this career growth. So I left beautiful Costa Rica. But I wanted to make sure I advertise it because I'm very proud about my home country. So this is when I then moved to London, and I joined a global procurement team. And I was looking after talent acquisition and contingent workforce. And this is where I started to get very passionate about this topic. And, being the curious person I am, I started to, read a lot, research a lot, and get involved in this. And an opportunity came up also to then move to Madrid and take a category management role, still in procurement, completely focused on contingent workforce. And that's when I moved to Madrid 3 years ago. That's when I joined Philip Morris, and again, like, it gave me the chance to completely focus on contingent workforce. I came. It was in a good situation that the company is quite open to new opportunities or different ways of doing things. So I saw an opportunity to improve the whole contingent workforce program, and essentially evolved into the creation of the Third Party Workforce Center of Excellence, which is my most recent role in PMI that I took over a year ago. And the role is sitting in our HR function, which we call People and Culture. So it's been a year since I moved to HR.
Wow.
So that's the journey.
Well, it's quite the journey, Milena, and I want to maybe unpack later in the show around the third party's Center of Excellence for Contingent Workforce sits in HR. That's really interesting to me because in my experience in the sector, and we'll come on to this, it's almost uncommon. And I want to unpack that a bit and get some analysis from you and also some practical advice if you're willing to share for HR and procurement and contingent workforce practitioners. But just down on the personal for a moment, Milena. Having moved countries and moved cities a number of times and been a frequent traveller here, there, and everywhere, it seems at times, I think it's underestimated the resilience, ambition, tenacity, and adaptability that people need to have to move from, let's say, Costa Rica to London to Madrid. And even though Spain and Costa Rica, I think, and please forgive my ignorance if I've got this incorrect, are both Spanish-speaking countries, culturally they're quite different. And I would imagine that London is different culturally from Costa Rica, even though it's a beautiful city. I spend a lot of time there. I love it. I love the restaurants and I love the buzz, but it's a very multicultural, global place where I think anyone can fit in, notwithstanding its size. But that must have been exciting, but also difficult, Milena, that journey. Like thinking back across that journey, are you glad you made those decisions to essentially leave Costa Rica, go to London, and then ultimately end up in Madrid for the moment?
I think it's it's a thing you need to do, like go outside your usual place and understand about different perspectives and cultures. That gives you also a sense, like, to value whatever it is that you have and you value from your your circle of friends, family, and your own country. But it also understands that there are different ways of doing things as well. So it's very nice. Particularly London, what I liked about it is that it's very international in the end. So it's you get to definitely see different perspectives, and understand that there's no single truth. It's all about that. So I think it's very rich, but if it is indeed very difficult, in the end, like, part of my recent journeys was I became a mother, and I had to do that during pandemic, with my family very far. And actually, when I had to take the interview to take the role in Philip Morris, I couldn't have anyone help me out with looking after my son. It's again, like, it's just minor things, but in the end, it's like gets you to value your whatever you have in your known place, in your own home country, and then go out and be brave and try to do things yourselves, with out in the world. So it's a very how would I say, like, well, for personal growth is very important, I would say. it's not for everyone. You have to be willing to let go of some things.
Yes.
So obviously in Costa Rica, you can live more, like there's more space, so you can live more comfortably.
Yes.
In London, you have to let go of, you have to kind of live in a smaller place. But, one thing's for the other. You have access to other cultures, other things. So I'm particularly very interested in music and arts, and
Yes.
in Europe that there's a lot of that I can get off and I really value. So yes, it's letting go of some things and accepting other new good things, which is great.
Yeah, I agree. I love that. There's a quote I read. I'm not sure who it's attributed to, but it says, "Life begins at the end of your comfort zone," and I really love that. And I think what you've just described is indicative of that. That you're moving beyond your comfort zone. And to your point, I agree, Milena. It's not to everyone, but anytime I'm speaking with young people that are coming into our business or that require mentoring, I always say, go where the work is, right? And what I mean by that is go where the best opportunities are. And what's interesting about the world now is that you don't also necessarily need to physically go to where the work is, right? And we'll maybe come on to that later. I think that's quite an interesting discussion point. But Milena, thanks so much for sharing your story. I always love hearing the personal stories of our guests, and I think it's really meaningful and impactful, and particularly for those that have taken that chance and taken that opportunity and pushed themselves to go and live somewhere else. And in your case, 2 different countries, 2 different huge cities, both very different, I would imagine. Milena, if we could just come back to... Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Milena, go ahead, please.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I no longer know which country I'm gonna settle in, and that's scary, but also nice, exciting in a good way, because if there are opportunities elsewhere, where me and my family can go and have a nice life and also have the opportunity to grow professionally, like we will. But that's one thing which is a question mark for me. Like I don't know how long I'm going to remain here, or maybe I'm going to be moving somewhere else. And same with the career. I'm currently in HR, but I don't know, because, and then I guess we'll discuss about this later around skills and how the work is changing, but who knows? My next role maybe doesn't exist yet.
Well, I think that's an important point that you're making there, Milena, and that's why I find the whole future of work, what's happening with skills and what's happening with how work gets done, who does work, what does work, and where that work gets done and how that work gets done. I think they're 4 fascinating questions that I think we're going to unpack today, Milena. So that's why I'm loving our conversation already. So, Milena, just coming back to you and your team at Philip Morris International at PMI. So what are the typical problems and challenges that your team and you solve for?
So as I mentioned, our team, the Center of Excellence, was built a year ago, and it has the typical aims that a contingent workforce program would generally have, plus an additional one. So we have a focus on improving the quality, cost, efficiency, and risk. But we also are putting sustainability and human rights angle into our program. So meaning, like, if we're doing an engagement which is good on quality, cost, efficient, and possibly, according to legislation, but may not be fair to the worker, then this is where we are adding that additional layer into the work we're doing. However, we didn't have a program before, so it started the whole thing. And by the way, it was procurement led. I will always flag this, because I was sitting in procurement then when we started to do all of this work in a informal way. But we then built the business case to create the third-party workforce center of excellence. And we thought, because this is about people, it should be sitting on the people and culture function, essentially. So that's why I kind of moved roles to, with the creation of the COE. But since we did not have, so our program, or our situation was not very mature, like we did not have a proper team looking into these. We did not have any policies, etc. So at this point of time, we are setting up the foundations for the program. So we have 4 key areas we are working. So one is the strategy. So making sure like we build the required ecosystem that we need to make everything work on the program. We have the governance or the policy. So at the moment we are reviewing the policy and rolling it out globally. Then the program operations, which is one of the biggest pieces of work. So we are setting up a service line and setting up a proper managed services provider to support us in the management of contingent workforce. And technology as well, the technology to manage the third-party workers as well. It's a first generation, and even if we are kind of behind other companies, we are doing it in such a way that we want to kind of leapfrog, hopefully, in the others, because of the way we are setting this up. Last year, as I said, it was a lot about business cases. Can we get the investment to expand technology, to have the program operations team? This year is all about execution, which is very exciting, very, very exciting. So, but a lot of work, as you can guess. But yes, it's definitely a lot going on this year. Big change. So we've also partnered with someone on the change management, because I think this is one of the areas where most people or some people miss, like underestimating that. But yeah, so it's been, that's where we are. That's where we are. I'm still doing a lot of educational work with the organization, because most of these things are new to the company generally.
Yes.
So that's why, like in the same way I try to do in LinkedIn, where I do like, small bites of information, I kind of do the same internally to educate my stakeholders about, what are the important things around the contingent workforce programs and some elements. There's a lot of acronyms that we use, so educating on that as well. So it makes it easier and smooth for to progress with what we are doing.
I agree with you, Milena. I think the contingent workforce sector has more acronyms than any other sector. I think I looked at a glossary recently that was published by Staffing Industry Analysts, and it ran to multiple pages. And I was like, my goodness, we really need to simplify this sector that we operate in and just get rid of these blooming acronyms. But yeah, I think you raise 2 really fundamental points for any practitioners in procurement or contingent workforce or HR, and it's really around when you're rolling out a program or developing a center of excellence like this. I think the educational piece and the change management piece need to work hand in hand, and if you can crack that part of the code and get those folks to buy into and hopefully embrace with what you and your team are going to do, then you're going to have a successful program. Because as you well know, Milena, it's the hiring managers that often have the most sway. And if you can't get she or he or they bought in to what you're going to do, then it's going to be really difficult to get the program successfully adopted.
Yeah, indeed.
So, Milena, one of the things we talked briefly about at the beginning of the show is around, I suppose, what has been considered a historical disconnect, if you like, between procurement and HR, or HR procurement, when it comes to managing contingent workforce strategies, contingent workforce operations, total talent or total workforce strategies. There seems to have been a disconnect, typically because most enterprises have HR and TA responsible for permanent hiring, if you like, or full-time employment hiring, or whatever the most appropriate descriptor is. And then procurement or an extended or contingent workforce team typically I say, and generally speaking, this is only general, has had responsibility for independent workers, recruitment vendors, statement of work vendors, suppliers. So there's often been this disconnect. And of course, as the talent market has got tighter, for a whole host of reasons, we've seen some smart organizations such as yours start to integrate these functions, if you like, to have one function. But I suppose my question is twofold, Milena. One, I suppose, what has been the historical reason in your view for that disconnect? But more importantly, what advice or tips or tricks or influence and skills would you like to share with our procurement and HR audience that are saying, listen, we've got a problem, we're just not doing this in an efficient and effective way. How can we do it better? And how can we do it crucially together?
I think generally, and with procurement, not just on the TA and contingent workforce space, there needs to be an acknowledgement from the business that procurement is there to do more than just contract or negotiations or RFPs or cost reduction, right? It's not about that. It's about added value. And if you there is a chance that procurement has to through maybe smaller things to demonstrate that they are there to deliver value beyond the cost savings, really. So it's about ensuring that there is this frequent engagement and understanding what the plans of the business are and how can you support as procurement with maybe insights and benchmarks or best practices, and go beyond that just doing any negotiation. So it's not transactional. And when I was sitting there in the procurement side, I got myself reading a lot, involved in as much webinars, conferences, etc., because I really just didn't just want to come up and support the business where there was a time for an RFP, but to actually have a seat in the table and discuss strategy with them. Have you thought about doing these other things? There are other companies that have more mature programs that have tried out this other solution and worked well. I can help connect you with them, etc. And so in the contingent workforce space, particularly, this is easier in some way because there is some sort of overlapping in the activities for the temp workers and, like you said, the services type of workers or engagements. So let's use that as an opportunity to stay closer to the business, and to tell you, like, the way we are doing it, the way I'm working together now with my procurement counterpart. I am openly and very frequently discussing, like, some of the thinking I have in strategy, in things we should be doing, best practices, like actively doing that with her, because I see her as a contributor, not just for the these parts around negotiations or contracts, but really overall for the strategy. So actually, if I'm honest, I'm sitting next to her and not my own team colleagues, which is quite funny, and people make fun because in reality, it is with my procurement colleague that we are constantly discussing everything that we are putting in place for the for the program operations rollout this year. So it's an opportunity for procurement to become a trusted advisor and have a seat together with the business in building the strategy. But there has to be, yes, that element of credibility that needs to be built at the beginning. So when I was in the procurement side, actually my current manager, he used to be my stakeholder, but I started to kind of pick his brains on something. And demonstrated that I had knowledge and more to give than just like being engaged when there was some RFPs or things like that. So even with small things, so I would tell this to my procurement colleagues in this space, like even if there is a small initiative, something that you can bring into the business and show that you have more to give, beyond the transactional stuff, you can start from there. So yes, I get it's a journey because trust needs to be developed and you need to kind of show that you have that expertise and additional value, but it's worth investing the time. I would say so. And the evolution of our program is a proof of that.
I love it. Milena, I love the advice that you have for our listeners, and I think if organizations are considering that, I think that's such important advice from you. So, Milena, we've seen a lot of, I suppose I would call it hype, right? Because I love marketing and I love selling and I love propositioning and solutioning, but I think we're probably in a hype cycle when it comes to the rise of skill-based hiring, right? And I think skills-based hiring certainly has its place, right? But I suppose my question really is, from your perspective, is skills-based hiring hype or is it actual reality? And if it's a reality, how do organizations make it so, in your view?
I think it's a reality, and if anything, if I reflect back on my own career journey, it's definitely a skills-based approach career journey, you see? Because I started in engineering, I moved to procurement, and then and recently to HR. And it all comes down to my skills. What skills I had that will be transferable to to the different roles I've been doing. And the thing is, because the the work is going through transformation. Like I was telling earlier, like there are jobs that doesn't exist yet. Well, my very own job I have right now didn't exist a year ago. So it's with this evolution, naturally, what we need to focus is really on the skills. Um, we were discussing before about this a paper from Rikoff and Popelier, the humanized workforce, and they were sharing some interesting statistics there that nearly 40% of the existing skill sets will be transformed or become outdated over the next 5 years.
Wow.
So if you think about this, and there's no doubt about it, because then we've got technology. Well, you've got AI as well. So um, it's a no-brainer. Like definitely the skills will be going through transformation, and at the same time, the businesses are seeing a gap in the or this a skills gap as a major barrier as well. So it is something that definitely it's happening, and we do need to start trying to crack the code to do it, because it's not easy. Um, I particularly liked very much. Sorry, that what Simon Bradbury from the Allegis group presented on the ProcureCon Berlin recently, because it was a multiple dimension approach. So yes, skills are important, but what you have to consider is like, what is the work that you want to get done, and there's different dimensions. So there's the skills, like attention to details, being good with spreadsheets, relevant scenarios. So if the person is going to be like interacting with stakeholders, so stakeholder management, the values and the culture fit, which particularly for our organization, is quite important. Like their empathy is one of the key components. That if someone doesn't have that, it's not gonna get the work done properly, and the background as well. So I really liked his approach on the success profiles, because he's taking into account the skills, yes, but overall, like all the different dimensions that you need to consider when you need a certain job to get done. So it's very it's something that everyone needs to start working on if the companies have not done yet. What I find very interesting about it, like uh, the, there should be a sort of internal talent marketplace
Yes.
where you can I showcase these are my skills, and today I'm doing the COE of TPW, but maybe in the future I can do something in, I don't know, communications, or based on my skills, and how the work will be changing so rapidly. Like there should be something like that, honestly. So that's like my nice to have on the skills based organization.
Yeah, I agree with you, Milena. And I've seen a really interesting platform out there whom we've worked with called Gigged.ai. And they started off as a gig platform, essentially marrying high end, high cost AI and developers with opportunities with enterprises. But they subsequently built an internal marketplace for enterprises, medium and large, for that very purpose. And it's really interesting to see how they've pivoted and the challenge and the problem that they're solving for. But one of the things, Milena, that on skills that interests me, it strikes me that there's potentially three pieces to the puzzle, which is individual responsibility for upskilling or reskilling or learning. Then, in my view, companies or organizations, if they've got talent in their organizations, it's probably incumbent upon them to have that model that you mentioned, or that internal platform, or whatever it is. But it also strikes me that there's an opportunity for government and education system to start preparing the youth of today for the jobs of tomorrow, not the jobs of today, or the rules, or what is going to be required. And of course, to our earlier points, we actually don't know what jobs are going to be there tomorrow. And when I say tomorrow, I'm talking 1 year, 2 year, 5 year type time horizon. But would you agree that there's probably three legs to that stool, or that puzzle, in terms of promoting a skills-based agenda?
Because it's very focused on degrees, which I think that's becoming outdated.
Yes.
So
Agree.
what there needs to be in education a different approach as to developing skills. And what is really interesting now is that the more human skills, human related skills, will become more relevant, like resilience, curiosity,
Yes.
having that appetite to learn, which actually comes back to your point about, like, it has to be a personal, like, decision that I need to upskill. I don't need to
Yes.
wait for the company to tell me I need to attend this thing or the other, like,
Yes.
really. So there's definitely there should be that shift in what things are we developing in the education of the people. So very interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating, I think, where this is going to go. And I know we're gonna talk about AI later in the show, Milena. But it's interesting how the labor market is developing from job based, if you like, or profile based to skills based. But at the same time, a lot of organizations aren't hiring. At the same time, we've got full employment. And when I say we, I'm really talking about Western labor markets: USA, UK, Netherlands. Germany is sort of a slight outlier, but in and out of full employment. Ireland is at maximum capacity from an employment perspective, where I'm based today. So it's really fascinating, but we'll come on to that, I think, in a second. But it is relevant in a way to what I want to discuss with you next, Milena, which is what we're seeing in, again, Western labor markets is, and also in China, as well is a declining population set, which is essentially having an impact on talent availability, right? And this is a long-term trend, particularly in the United States and particularly in the the Eurozone to be more accurate. So I think over a 60-year period, we've seen a 30% decline in birth rates, which is having an impact on the labor market, coupled with regulations increased and restrictions on inward migration or immigration. I always get the phrase wrong, but in short, many countries in Europe are saying we want less people in. The United States is certainly leading the way in that. Whether you agree with it or not, it's a fact, right? And in my view, it's a sad fact, right? I believe immigration is a force for good. I think it's a force for opportunity, but it's not a politics show, so maybe we'll come back on that another time. But I suppose, Milena, my question really is, how can organizations like yours, like some of the largest enterprises and companies in the world, what do they need to do to go and find where this talent is available? Because it's not always possible if you've got a company like yours that has what I call deskless workers, right? So in short, they need to be on a manufacturing or a production plant. They don't have it's not like you can go to India or Africa easily to find the people that you need to do the work remotely. I don't think so, right? So I suppose my question really is, what what can be done to solve for these sort of challenges from the enterprise and from the company perspective?
So, well, it is. We have a combination. Yes, we have a lot of blue collars in our organization, and as well as the white collar. For the white collar, I guess what we are trying to do is through the third-party workforce program, make sure that we provide compliant and agile ways to the business to engage with talent. Because going back to the skills, what is happening to us is, because we are going through business transformation, moving away from cigarettes and going to the electronics, the type of skills that we need are considerably different. And so there is a recent more frequent need for a specialized R&D people or consultants. So we want to give through the program a way to access that in a compliant way, so that we can offshore some of this talent. At the same time, we are being conscious of the blue collars. We intend to work on their employability, whether that is in our own company or outside. So I did not mention this before, but our COE is sitting on under a wider team, which is called People Sustainability. And actually, one of the biggest projects that there is in our team is the employability. So how can we support these workers in staying relevant in terms of skills or basically skills so that they can remain either inside or outside the company, but continue to find a job. So it's two different angles. In our case, like at the moment, we have a larger need on the white collar side. So that's why we are currently working on the program operations and how we can set up easier and faster engagements compliantly by as well with these workers. But regulations are not making it easy. And I think we discussed this before, like talent shortage, but at the same time we've got these restrictions about how we can engage with the workers who are in other countries. So it's never ending. Like it's very challenging, and at the same time, like we want to provide agility to our business on these engagements with the skilled workers. So it's a tough one.
Yes,
Very tough.
It is. I think it's a complex operating environment that can be simplified, right? For sure. And there's other parties out there that can do that, including ourselves. But Milena, one of the things that you mentioned there really struck a chord with me around what the wider team in your Centre of Excellence are doing, that people sustainability piece. I love that your company is honouring what I would call and describe the social contract with your blue collar workers, that perhaps unfortunately if they don't have a medium or long term home at your company, that you're actually setting them up for success, hopefully outside. And I think that speaks to the values of your organization. You mentioned that empathy piece earlier around, when you obviously want the right skills, but also there's a cultural fit, and some of that cultural fit relates to empathy. But it strikes me that empathy is a chord that runs throughout your organization. Is that a fair assessment, based on my read of what you said?
It is, and that human rights fairness is generally like at the center of what we've been doing, and regardless of what's happening outside,
Yes.
any orders coming from anywhere, like we will kind of remain those at the core of our organization, because it's part of the value. So we care, which that's how we call this value, which is around empathy, is
Yes.
is one of the core values for the company. So it's genuinely in our DNA.
Yeah, it's really refreshing to hear that, and I can tell how proud you are to work in an organization with those sort of values, because I think it's incredibly important. And I actually think, Milena, that those values are going to become even more important. And here's why I think that's the reason, and the reasons are for the following. My view that as artificial intelligence becomes more widely adopted and also becomes much more intelligent on an exponential basis, which is what most of the commentators saying, organizations, both medium, large, and small, will be faced with a choice. Do I deploy AI and get a potential cost saving in terms of my people cost, i.e., unfortunately, less people in the organization, but more AI, and therefore the organization is potentially more efficient and effective, right? And I think most organizations, despite their values, have a profit motive. They've got shareholders, they're often listed on stock exchanges, and they have to return an investment, right? Or they have to pay a dividend, or they have to show share price growth and earnings growth and all that. I'm feeling this a what test here, obviously. But my point is, Milena, is it likely that that social contract, not in your organization's case, but on a general basis, that social contract is likely to be broken? Because if your competitors are investing in AI like it's going out of fashion, I was going to use a more crude term, but if it's going out of fashion, most organizations will be forced to do the same because they want to get the same return on that investment, right? And if people is more expensive, but AI is less expensive, organizations are going to be faced with a really difficult choice. And as rational and logical as organizations are, and as human, they're going to have to choose profit over people. In my view, now that's quite a dystopian view. I appreciate that, but I'm already seeing the reality of that in my own organization, right? Which is a medium-sized global company, right? So, multiply our revenues by 100 times to 100 billion company, right? Imagine the choices that organizations that size are going to be faced with. So anyway, that's a rather long monologue, Milena, so thanks for listening. But my question is, do you think that social contract is likely to be broken, number one? And then number two, are you concerned about AI or AGI's impact on jobs, and specifically job loss or displacement?
I think, and then going back to the paper I mentioned before, the humanized workforce. I really like the concept they introduced there, which is called humanized growth. And what basically they are sharing is that there needs to be a transition on the businesses going beyond just maximizing profit at all costs for the shareholders, and taking a holistic approach, listening to all the stakeholders. And by stakeholders, we are talking employees, consumer, the communities, planet, humanity as a whole. I really like that. And then if so, it can no longer just be about profits and keeping the shareholders happy. Because on the other hand, we've got a new evolving population, the Gen Z, which genuinely cares about that. So I'm going to look at a company that it's not only giving me opportunities, but it's also caring about the community, the environment, and all of that. So that's a concept that I read over there that really resonated with me, and I think is the way to go to. And again, like because of these younger generations coming with this approach, it's eventually it will have to fit into like business models. For us, particularly in our organization, again, it's at the center, sustainability, and overall as a trend, because we also see like more regulations coming around the social part. I genuinely believe like we shouldn't be panicking about AI or technology. I mean, think about some years ago with I don't know, the calculators of the internet, of some things, you know, um, they just change the nature of the work, but there is some work there. So there will be some work that will disappear, but at the same time there will be other type of jobs that will um, appear as a result. What is really important is that everyone starts to get their hands on with AI, because they're gonna be left behind if not. So what if I didn't if I didn't know how to use emails? I will be left out of the workforce if I couldn't. But um, s- so it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same um, with the AI. So everyone needs to start getting familiar, because I mean some of the things, and for me, I'm really grateful that there is, because AI has really helped me to get rid of some of the repeated boring tasks that I had to do before. Um, but you can only like develop this by using it. So it is only through like actually doing things with AI that you learn how to best leverage it. So there's no need to panic about it. It's just like, with it, start playing with it, and then make sure that you stay relevant for the future of work. So I think I have a very optimistic view with this humanized growth. But I generally think like the younger generation would kind of impose this. So um yeah, that's my personal view on this.
Yeah, I like it. Like this is where I'm conflicted myself, Milena, because I think I'm a born optimist, right? I always see the glass half full, as they say, right? But with this, with the emergence of AI and the speed of AI and the adoption of AI and the power of AI, I suppose if I could distill my concern into one sentence, to the best of my knowledge, humanity has never faced a more or the same intelligent competitor, right? As we measure intelligence as humans, right? So this is our first, as I understand it, first ever competitor, right? For intelligence, right? So for me, that's the concern. I'm a competitive person, I suppose. Underneath it, I always say I compete with myself, but I probably I am competitive. So that's really what my concern is, right? And what happens when it becomes smarter than us, right? And will it be our tool? Or will we be its tool? But anyway, we could probably spend all day talking about that. But that's my fundamental concern.
Yes, a very good. In the end, you need the humans behind to work with it, and because like there needs to be the human in the loop, and that's the core of it. That's the way I see it. Like it's like a partner, co-intelligence.
Yes.
Actually, that's the title of the book that I I read. It's co-intelligence. It's not them alone, because there needs to be that human over there to We need to be able to um, discern, like if it's like hallucinating, for example, or it's not necessarily relevant to what we are requesting. So it cannot be left alone. Like, we are still needed, at least today.
Good. Well, I think that's a nice optimistic note, Milena. So, Milena, one of the things I want to talk briefly on, if you're okay with it, is we've seen in the business press a lot of return to office or return to site mandates, and this isn't something new. I think we've seen it in the popular press really since about 2021, 2022, when the COVID era was starting to become over. And I suppose my question is, what is your take on these return to office mandates? Do you think that they are good, bad, ugly, or indifferent?
That's I mean, it became apparent, and if something good came up from the pandemic, COVID, etc., is that we can work from anywhere. And so, and back to the younger generations, the Zs and millennials, it's a generation that is being focused on work-life balance, flexibility, remote work, more time to work on mental health and etc. So if a company is not gonna deliver that, they're gonna be out of that of talent, really.
Yes.
So it's nonsense. I cannot understand why would a company do that. And i- in essence, like, if the work, like, there was no impact in terms of productivities, if the work has already been done, uh like, it's demonstrated that it doesn't matter where you are, why do otherwise? I do agree. I personally like, and that really depends also on the people, but I enjoy going to the office every now and then. We have a hybrid model, so we go some days in the office, some days working from home. But I genuinely enjoy the interactions with people and see the benefit in doing so. But there are some other people that might be more comfortable just on their own space. And that's to be respected as well. So it's giving that flexibility in the end, that we are all kind of different and need um, different environments to help us deliver our work more successfully, I would say. And then on the other hand, we've got these where we are engaging more external workers that may work from offshore as well. So
Yes.
it's it's a win-win. Why not keeping those flexible policies? It's yeah, for me it's bad.
Yes. Me too. I'm with you, Milena. I think it's bad, mad, and crazy. I think in a world of talent shortage or talent availability, you have to let people be people and adults be adults, right? And um, give people delegation, autonomy, and authority as to how and where they do their work. And listen, if they're no good, well then they're not the right person for your organization. But that doesn't mean that you should bring 10,000 people back into the office, or 100, or one people, just because some people can't be efficient and effective working remotely or working from home. So I'm very much with you on that, Milena. And I think some of the data actually supports that return to office mandates are not successful from a productivity perspective. There's a how do I describe? There's a dating app I think called Grinder, and they looked at some of the data when they introduced a return to office mandate, and I think productivity declined somewhere in the region of about 30 to 45%. And roughly, I think the numbers were over 50% of their top talent left the organization because they could no longer work remotely. So that's just one small use case. Of course, I'm sure there's many others. And of course, people will probably counter this on social media and say, well, what about this? What about that? But I agree with your view, Milena. So, Milena, I'm loving our conversation, right? Really loving it. But unfortunately, we need to bring it to an end. But I'd love to finish with what is your prediction or predictions for the future of work?
I think definitely, and on the best interest of my current role, what we are doing really, there's going to be a rise on the external workforce, like the extended workforce, and we already see it. Um, However, that imposes a new challenge, and it's like we need to move away from the traditional ways of looking at employment, because the way if we are going to be largely engaging with external workforce or extended workforce, I think the statistics today is saying like companies are using maybe around 30%. I think that will grow. But how can we have grow the connection between these workers and the organization? How can these workers be protected against any vulnerabilities, or how the work is set up today, because in terms of benefits and things like that. So that poses a great challenge, but I think the rise will be there because, again, thinking about talent shortages, specialized skills, younger generations not really wanting to, come and work for a company long term, but really kind of do project-based type of work. And that takes me to the next one. I believe, like, going back to skills based organization, I think that should be the next approach, kind of gig work, if you may, but internally project based type of work that where we, on the basis of skills. That's also something that could be interesting and beneficial in terms of cost for the companies. There's also, I would say, a big element of legislation. How can we uh, change legislation so that it's able to successfully manage all of these changes in the future of work? Because at the moment it's not making it easy. But then again, like, we have talent shortages. We need some specialized skills. The world is becoming more globalized. We want talent from anywhere. um, we should be able to work from anywhere, like we just talked. So again, on the legislative side, government side, there is a lot of work to do to be able to crack this one. But yeah, so, and then I truly believe on the what I mentioned before about humanized growth. So it's the giving the relevance and the voice to all the different stakeholders that there are around a company, and not just the ones putting the money.
I love that. I think that's a really lovely way to finish, Milena. And I love that humanized growth concept, and I think it's going to be ever more important as we move through the age of AI and the age of talent shortage and the age of demographic decline and deficit. So, Milena, I've loved having you on the show. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I really appreciate you making the time to come on and speak to our audience and give your ideas, which are excellent and very interesting. So, Milena, where is the best place for our audience to come and read your content, get that fresh and interesting perspective that I mentioned at the beginning of the show? Where's the best place to find you?
LinkedIn. So yes, that's my LinkedIn profile, which is under my, the name that you've got here, Milena Cerdas. And I'm trying to keep it very frequent. So I'm constantly reading and making sure I'm well equipped to share some interesting insights to everyone. So feel free to connect. I love making connections and even having offline discussions with some of these connections. So I'm a people person, so feel free to reach out.
Well, thank you, Milena. And there you have it, folks. Milena Cerdas, Global Contingent Workforce Strategy Manager at Philip Morris International. Milena, have a great day ahead. Thanks so much for doing the show, and look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Open Talent Report with Connor Heaney. If you found this podcast informative and engaging, make sure you subscribe, tell your friends, and follow us on all your favorite streaming platforms.